Love and respect. It's your boy Change Agent Cooper. And in full transparency, I wanted to do a video today just to give you a little bit about me and what has occurred over the course of the pandemic. So transparency is a value of mine because, what you see is what you get. Or as my IT buddies would say, WYSIWYG. But I wanted to tell y'all a little bit about the higher powered staffing is it a funeral? I don't know if I want to call it a funeral or not, but the closing of higher powered staffing and why it's closing. So over the course of working for upscale Western North Carolina at the community college, what I noticed was that I had strong connections to the community. And so at this point in time, I was building relationships with employers and having strong relationships with employers and strong relationships with the community and connections in the community. It created me being a bridge. And so while being a bridge, I was sending a lot of people to work. There was a lot of people going to work. And so one day I thought about it like, man, what if I had my own staffing agency? Since I'm sending so many people to work, I should start my own staffing agency. And so I had that thought, but I didn't run into it because I was too busy helping people. And, starting your own business takes time. One of my mentors, shout out to my man, Dwayne Adams, he would always stay on me about, getting things done and invested in myself. And I ended up launching Higher Power Staffing September the 1st, 2019. It was 9/1/19. I never forget. And so launched Higher Power Staffing, but I didn't do too much with it because, like I say, I was still doing the work. I was still meeting with clients, taking clients to the DMV, to the workforce services and all of this stuff, peer support, all of that. So I really didn't have time to invest in my business, but then came the pandemic. And so the pandemic sit us down and it changed operations a little bit. So it freed up some more time for people like myself to invest in a product that I believed in. So whenever I was trying to push, and shout out to Venture Asheville, because I even got support from Tipping Point and Venture Asheville at the chamber. I got support for Higher Powered, y'all. It was crazy. It felt so good that people were seeing my vision. And I already had a proven track record with that model at Upskill. You feel me? It was basically the same model at Upskill, but I was creating my own business because you all know that grant funding runs out. And so how do you keep the work going? And so meanwhile, I got the staffing agency and I'm starting to do some employer engagement, but the pandemic hit. And y'all know the employer slowed down on hiring when the pandemic hit. So boom, so I'm kind of stagnant. But shout out to East Fort Pottery, shout out to ComEd. There were some companies who did sign contracts with me, and I was able to do some beautiful work and get some solid people, some solid living wage jobs. However, it was still hard for me to be able to launch that, for that to be a full-time job. I wasn't making enough money to pay bills with what I was making off of it. And so I continued to do the work. Upskill Western North Carolina, you already know what time it is. Peer support for specialists, community health workers, workforce development, utilizing evidence-based practices for mentoring these job seekers. So it's not just getting them a job, but it's attaching them to a mentor to work with them and address those things outside of the workplace that lead to job retention. So boom. So I'm trying to continue to do the work. I'm not able to invest in my staffing agency. And then the next thing you know, I get a call from Dewana Little at DeWine. And I get recruited to be the workforce development, economic and workforce development director at DeWine. So I'm like, yeah, makes sense. Perfect fit. I was actually excited because now I can really focus on addressing disparities. And I got an organization behind me that prioritizes advocacy. You dig? And so now, being at the YMI, I'm like, boom, I got this workforce development piece that's going on here. And I'm using the same framework that I've been using. This is the same framework that I've been using since October 2017. Shout out to Michael Carter for recruiting me to work for STEP. And when I worked for STEP, I had an opportunity to figure out ways to address some barriers. So I'm glad that Michael invited me to the table. If you're not at the table, you're on the menu. But anyway, so then I'm at the YMI and I'm like, okay, this is a way for me to continue this model, the same model that started with Upskill, the same model I was looking at using for Higher Power Staffing is the same model that I will continue to use. Consistency is the major key. Perseverance versus everything. My bad, I had to let that out. But anyway, so this same model is being used at Operation Gateway at the YMI Cultural Center. The same model. And so now there's not a fee for service because it's a nonprofit. It's a nonprofit that can have more staff. At Higher Powered, I couldn't even afford to pay staff because I wasn't making enough money to even survive. I was making some extra cheese to go in the pocket, but it wasn't enough to pay bills, and it was definitely not enough to to have salaries, to have staff. And, you know, it was hard to compete with other staffing agencies because it takes a lot of capital to run a staffing agency. It takes a lot of capital to compete with the other staffing agencies. So what happened? Why my Operation Gateway program subsumed higher powered staffing? There's no need for higher powered staffing now. Now, granted, I wanted to make some extra money and stuff like that, but it ain't about that. It's about helping the people. How can you scale up helping the people? It ain't about that. You feel me? Jill Sparks told me one day that I was an entrepreneur. That means somebody that works inside of a company and gets creative from the inside. So I'm not shooting down my entrepreneur abilities, but what I will say is I'm the kind of guy that comes in, cleans up, and provides a vision that best supports what's going on. You dig? And I don't mind doing that. That's the way God wired me. You feel me? So I did this video because I wanted to be transparent, because I got off the call with one of my colleagues from Goodwill, you know, and they was like, what's going on with higher powered staff? And I hear you doing some great things. And I was like, man, to be honest, higher powered ain't really a thing no more. Right now, higher power is being subsumed by the YMI. And we using that at the YMI Workforce Development Program called Operation Gateway. You know what I'm saying? And so just so y'all are clear on what it is that we're doing, we are utilizing the community health workers as mentors, addressing those barriers to employment, mentoring those people who have barriers to employment. And then when we send them to work, them people in HR, they already know that we got mentors on deck, that these people got wraparound services, and they more comfortable with hiring these people because they see what kind of support they got. So that's the model, and that's my story. You know, I try to get it in as much as I could get in less than 7 minutes, and we are approaching 7 minutes. 7 is the number of completion. I learned that in church. But just know, man, transparency is very important to me, and I'm trying to be transparent with the people so that you can see why I operate and why and how I operate in the way that I do. At the end of the day, it is all about empowering the people, and glory be to God, the Most High, for allowing me to be in the position that I am in to impact change and address these disparities. I'm not just a complainer. I'm one that tries to get in the solution, and I got to be at the table. Because if you ain't at the table, you're on the menu.